Data shows that Nigeria has the largest population of migrants from African continents to developed countries. But in recent time, the Japa syndrome tied to the current state of the nation has further endeared Nigerians to seek greener pasture and better opportunities elsewhere. Hello and welcome to Let's Talk. As usual, my name is Olujoke Mosaku. The topic is rampant relocation and its effect on the workforce. My guest is Aderonke Salami, CEO, Unicorn HR Services. But as usual, like I always said, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Until then, enjoy the ride with us. Thank you so much again for coming back on the show. It's nice having you again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Okay. Now we're talking about relocation, and there's this thing about japa. So what's up with this japa syndrome reigning in Nigeria now?
Well, the truth of the matter is, everybody is, well, most people that can afford it are looking, like you said earlier, looking for greener pastures. Um, we've had situations where, you know, people in the service industry, people in the manufacturing industry, people in even in the medical field are moving in droves to other places, especially countries like Canada, the UK, and the US for a better life, a better system, and basically better pay.
All right. Yes, like you mentioned, the medical organization, the medical sector are actually the ones majorly experiencing this form of relocation. Everyone is trying to get a better opportunity out there. So, as an HR personnel, how would you describe the workforce, both public and private sector?
The workforce, both public and private sector, just basically, funny how recently I was reading something, with regards to this, and I realized that, the workforce, is about 45 to 48% of the world population, are in the workforce. And when it comes to the public sector, it just means that this workforce are focused on government enterprises, government solutions, government, everything that has to do with government has to deal with the public workforce. Whereas the private sector is one that you say is focused or is interested in the individuals and the things that they are interested in, the things that bring them money as as an organization, a group of people deciding that this is we want to offer these services, we want to give out this product, we want to sell this. That's basically the workforce for the private industry. And then like I mentioned before, the workforce for the public is just anything government oriented.
So now that everybody wants to leave the country, how has relocation affected or is affecting the workforce at the moment for the government to act? Because I understand that before you can go get a visa, you have to take some form of letter from the government, from your office, for you to be able to even get to do that.
Well, to be honest, right, this has been a very, very like we call it now, it's a great resignation, especially for those of us in the African setting, where we're seeing that people are going in their droves. It has really affected. Personally, I wouldn't say it has affected too badly, but I would also say that it has affected a lot because we have good talent moving out of this country. You hear stories like people who are GMDs, who are top C-suite executives moving out of the country to get a better life, and that has affected a lot, especially the private sector. The private sectors are the ones that have been affected badly by this because there's that huge gap in between where the talent, like what we call these days, I don't like to use the term, but that's the term that we're seeing these days. It's called scarcity of talent, where most companies are not finding it easy anymore. And we would say that some of the things that has been affecting them mostly is because of the fact that Gen Zs are now, in the market, whereas those of us that are the millennials, those who are the baby boomers, are beginning to leave the workforce, or are, like we said, are jackpying out of the country because of, getting greener pastures. Now, the transference of all of these roles and all of these jobs for the Generation Z has been a huge problem, and there's been a big gap because their idea or their ideology of how the workforce or the workplace should be like is different from what organizations have put, or the policies that they have put, on ground over the years. So companies are beginning to adjust the system just to make sure that that scarcity of talent is beginning to close gap.
Hmm. Okay, recently I saw on social media a Nigerian guy who, fortunately for him, he landed in Canada, and he just laid on the. I guess it was still at the airport, and it was like was saying thank you God, you have saved me from from the hand of so person. I wouldn't want to mention, of course, we all know what I'm talking about. And it was it was so excited. It feels like he just came out of a prison gate.
The truth of the matter is, we all know that things are a lot more tedious these days, especially in our Nigerian community. The prices of things have gone up, the food stuff, transportation. If you're thinking about anything, everything has gone high, almost 100% more than what we used to have. Um, so people are looking for every way and every means to actually move to a better life, quote and unquote, so to speak, right? Because that's the ideology that has been sold to us over the years, that when you move out of the country, you have a better life, you have stability, you have more money and things like that. But the truth of the matter is, not everybody can afford to do that, right? Not everybody has the means to do that, because even just leaving the country is very, very expensive. Just like what you said, that some people are having to get letter. They're making it more even serious for people to get out of the country, but it's not stopping anybody. It's not stopping people from moving ahead. I'll say that it's been an interesting sights to see, right? Because we have the school of thought from some set of people who say that if you have the opportunity to leave, just leave. And then some other people are still here saying that this is our country, this is something that we are passionate about, this we have to have the change that we need. And so for me, what I'm seeing here is that people just want to have a better life. People just want to have a better structure. People just want to have things okay for themselves, and they feel like if they can get it outside of the country, then it's okay for them. But for me personally, I believe that even though this is something that everybody wants to do, we also need to find that balance where, like, the school of thought that says this is our country, we need to fix it, we need to find out how we can get better and do things the right way. So for me, I believe that we all need to stand up together and find how to work the system to our benefit.
Okay, let's go on this quick break. We will be right back. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, the program is Let's Talk on DNT Work. And I've been speaking with Aderonke Salami. She is the CEO, Unicorn HR Services. And we've been discussing the issue of relocation, which has become a rampant thing in Nigeria, and it's often called japa, like everybody just wants to leave the country for one reason or the other, but we are looking at its effect on the workforce. Thank you so much, Ronke, for standing by.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's look into your world. Let us into your world. Who are the kind of people you attend to on a daily basis, and what are their thoughts? Also, what are the employers going through at the moment?
Oh yes. So for job seekers, what has happened is that they're seeing, the opportunity to, how do I put this? Let me put it this way. Yes, we are seeing the japa season. Yes, we can tell that there are loopholes in the system, and there's a lot of vacancies. But we also are seeing where people or employers are mentioning things like a scarcity of talent. Now, on a daily basis, one of the things that I have noticed is the recurrent, notion that, um, there's no job out there. There's no job out there. So on a daily basis, I get messages about, placements and things like that. Unfortunately for job seekers, I do not do placements, but I've had to, school them as to ways they can actually get these jobs that are emptied, so to speak. And so, I have to interact with, job seekers. I have to interact with current employees, and I'm having to interact with employers as well. Employers in the sense that, you know, as people are leaving their roles, they need to fix people in. Now, one of the things I have, I mentioned this earlier when I said that I do not believe in the scarcity of talent. Earlier when we were talking, I mentioned that, we have in the world population, we have about 45 to 48% of, the age bracket 18 to about 60 or 65, in the workforce as it is. So it means that there are a lot of people that are available for work. Now, why then is there something called scarcity of talent? One of the things that I have seen is the idea that, people are refusing to upskill themselves. Yes, they've decided that they've gotten their education, they've done one or two courses. But what we're seeing is that things are changing for better. Things are changing because of, the technologies that are being created on a daily basis. Now, if all of these job seekers are not upskilling themselves to these new technologies, it becomes very hard for employers to employ them. Now, that's on one side. On the other side, I always say things like this. It is true that there's that feel of scarcity, but if employers are willing, they can actually get the talent that they're looking for. The question is, can they afford these talents that they're looking for? We're seeing here where fintechs are one of the most or one of the highest paying industries. And so people have that ideology. Let me give an example so that there's that understanding. Take for instance, a customer success person in a fintech industry is being paid about 450,000 naira, right? Now, somebody in the manufacturing industry or a company in the manufacturing industry decides that they want to also get a customer service, manager. The truth of the matter is, as a fintech, there's money in that, there's that belief that there's money in that industry. As a manufacturing industry, we can tell that the money that comes into this industry isn't as much as that of fintech. So you have the idea that, we have the customer success person coming from a fintech going into a manufacturing industry, would assume that they'll be paid the same amount that they were paid, as a as a customer success person in the fintech industry. But that's not the case. It might mean that what the role, the return on investment rather, is not as much as that of the fintech. You do not expect, a company such as that to actually pay, a fintech, a customer success person that same 450,000 naira. And that's the problem that we are having. And that's why you hear things like scarcity of talent. You hear things like, oh, people are jackpying and, they're not, there's that gap in the industry. But the truth is, how many companies can afford to pay what is the current rates are? Right. Now, on the other side of the job seekers are not ready. I always say this. I get that message on a daily basis where people send me messages and say, hello, is this Unicorn HR consultant? Please, can you do me a placement? I'm looking for a job. Now, my problem with that kind of request is I do not see it necessary to ask you what kind of role you're looking for. I feel like if you are looking for a role, you are smart enough to have a strategy on ground already where you are going to tell me exactly what you need. I shouldn't have to, as a HR consultant, start to ask you or to start to push you as to what you require or what you need or what you're looking for. If I have to do that, it means that you're unserious and you're not ready for the role that you are looking for. I've seen situations whereby because of the desperation that is out there, you have job seekers who will intentionally apply for almost 3, 4, 5, 6 roles in the same company. So one person is applying for the role of a customer service, the role of the office assistant, the role of an accountant, the role of what else can we say, of the HR in that same company. They're not going to see you as serious, right? And that's what's affecting the whole system that we're having right now, in the HR industry, even in the services industry as a whole, where the gap between the employers and the employees or the job seekers is widening by the second. Because, now we have, like I mentioned earlier, that we have, a lot of the millennials, a lot of the baby boomers moving out of the country, right? And so the gap of, managing the people's businesses, is widening by the second. Now you have Generation Z coming up and, the newer generations coming up into the workforce. The gap is getting wider by the second, because of the fact that they who are coming in don't even have an idea of what they should be doing in the first place. So these are the things that we face on a regular as HR consultants. And, it becomes a problem and it makes it look like we're not doing our jobs because that gap is widening more and more.
So those are the challenges that you get to encounter on a daily basis. Well, it actually reminded me of a recent advert on where a company in Lagos actually needed, specifically requested for core members, and for them to come and work in their company with a 30,000 naira monthly payment, and I think accommodation. And I wonder how did we get here? Because when you're being posted, you're not even sure if you're going to be you'll be given the slot. But now they're looking for core members, and I'm like, okay, is it that you don't have the money to pay those who are qualified in quotes? Not that the core members are not, but you know that what you give to them is lesser compared to what you would give to someone with a lot of experiences.
To be honest, like I said, the economy hasn't been very friendly, with a lot of employers. I'm currently even, working on a case right now where, there's a company that hasn't paid their staff, in a while. And, it's so bothersome because, these are people who have worked, for their time. Now, you see, like you mentioned, you see a lot of companies, having to take core members. That way, the amount spent on the workforce would be a bit reduced. These days, what we are even seeing, even to the banks, we've seen where banks are reducing the time, the coming time of a lot of their staff. You see them, they close these days. Some of the banks close by 2 p.m., some close by 3. You don't necessarily even see them. When you go to the bank of recent, and that happened to me of recent, when I went to the bank around 3:30, and I was told that, oh, we're sorry, but we closed around 3. And it was shocking to see because some of these banks were banks that were closing by 5 p.m., initially. Do you understand? So people, I mean, companies are beginning to adjust their times. They're beginning to adjust, the workforce, the way they're doing things these days, their policies, just to adjust to the economic situation of the country. Um, the truth of the matter is, you can't really blame them, especially with the way the government is and the taxes that they have to pay, some of the policy acts that they have to readjust and things like that. And so it's easier for them. Let me just play the devil's advocate here. It's easier for them to actually, take on core members who, are quote and unquote, government property. Do you understand? Because they know that they don't necessarily have to pay high. But I will tell you for a fact that there are still companies that pay core members as much as 150,000 naira, depending on the kind of role or the kind of things that they are doing. So all of this is dependent on the kind of company that job seekers are vying for. I used to tell people that, when it comes to the workforce or when it comes to companies, there are different grades. There are the international companies, there are the national companies, and then there are the local companies. You don't expect that local companies will pay as high as the international companies or as high as the national companies, or the national companies to pay as high as the international companies. So those are the nuances and the things that we are seeing, in our workforce today.
Okay, so that justifies whatever it is that they are doing. But I would also want to ask them reducing their work time. Does that mean that their salary too will be reduced? The salary being paid will be reduced because in other parts of the world, if you don't work, you're not going to get paid. But in Nigeria, the payment system is at the end of every month, a salary is being paid. So whether high or low.
I don't believe that their salaries are reduced. Now, what we're seeing here is that rather than have people's salaries reduced, what they're doing is they're cutting down on the workforce. So companies that used to have maybe like 100 staff, maybe are probably reduced to about 70 or about 30. So it means that some roles are multiplied for some for some staff. That's what's happening. And then, like I said before, we are now in the technology age, right? A lot of companies are using technological solutions to help them to fast track some of the services that they do. So take, for instance, where we used to have a lot of maybe HR officers in the office. Rather than that, we have HRS systems that maybe 1, 2, 3 people, are trained to use, and then they make the work easier for the entire organization. So people are becoming smarter when it comes to to this, and that's why we see that it looks like there's a scarcity of talent or there's a scarcity of jobs out there, because people are beginning to use solutions to help them to cut down on their workforce. Now, and this takes me to how people become redundant with their work, and why we have a lot of job seekers out there. I mentioned this earlier when I said that the truth of the matter is that many job seekers are just they I don't want to say they're just not ready, because people are looking for job, but having to invest their time or their energy in upskilling, they would rather just tell you that I'm not, I'll just keep looking for a job out there, rather than just upskill and become better at what it is that they're doing. So that's what we are seeing right now. That's the energy that we feel, we're getting right now. So it's not about, we're different from, the US or the UK or the Canada, where, you're paid by the hour. We are paid monthly, and I'm sure people, I'm sure that organizations would see that it would be unfair to cut down if they have to. Some organizations do, but this is something that would have been communicated to everybody without just, so that they understand that this is what is happening at this moment. You don't just cut down salaries, especially if there's a contract already from the beginning stating that this is what they'll be paid. So rather than do that, a lot of companies are taking the option of reducing their staff, reducing the time that they spend at the workplace, or reducing, they're just basically cutting down costs.
Okay. So what do you see in 3 years if relocation persists?
Well, what I see is readjustment of policies, if this continues to persist, because to be honest, a lot of companies are having to adjust to getting Gen Zs. I remember something that showed up on social media, maybe I think it was last month or so, where a woman came out to say, she needs to understand how to work with Gen Zs. They are the driving force of how the workforce looks like right now. A lot of companies are beginning to adjust their policies in such a way that they adjust to the standard of what is happening right now. I recently shared something on LinkedIn. It was a video. I shared a video of a group of people who were speaking, where the main person was asking, how do you manage retaining staff? And the response I was giving was that there is a need to understand that there was a time initially when the in the initial industrial revolution showed that people got jobs based on survival. They needed to survive, right? The next part, or the next generation came on board as, okay, my standard of living, how do I want my standard of living? That is why I'm getting a job, because I want my standard of living to be high. Now, this generation that we're in, they're not looking for survival. They're not looking for standard of living. This is what their parents have done. Now they're looking at quality of life. What is their quality of life? Can the company that I am working for improve my quality of life? That is what they're looking at right now. So in 3 years' time, I believe, and it's not even 3 years' time, right? I believe that these things are already happening and the changes are already being made right now, where, we have companies adjusting their policies to ensure that there's a work-life balance that, helps those of the new people or the new staff that they are bringing on board.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you have any final word?
Well, I'll just say that, as HR professionals, it is high time that we change the status quo of what is happening in our system and adjust. Luckily for us, the pandemic has helped us to adjust some of these things. We just need to put all of these things into practice. We see that we still have, as much as social media is helping us to propagate some of these things are not being implemented in the workforce as it is. So we need to be able to implement those things. If it's that we need to change, if it's that we need to upskill, if it's that we need to go for more trainings, then we need to do that to make sure the workforce is beneficial to everyone.
Thank you so much for your time and your contribution. It's always nice having you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to you out there, thank you too for being part of the show. Until next time, I remain Uluja Kemosaku. But remember, you have to subscribe if you haven't. Bye.